Hey everyone, Prince B here. It's time to talk EA for E3. I'm gonna discuss their press conference or whatever it is you want to call it, their presentation. Uh, right out of the bag, it was a mess. uh, Not necessarily what they had to show, more so the way they structured it. Well, I'm gonna do things more or less in order, so you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But jumping right in. They started with the game everyone wanted to hear, or everyone wanted to see them talk about, Mass Effect 4. Uh, it's going to be called Mass Effect Andromeda, apparently. Uh, and it's set to release very late next year. I think December of 2016 is its scheduled release. So, we did, from what I saw, wasn't a whole lot there. Just a little teaser, but we know the name. So uh, that was a good way to get everyone's attention, but they didn't really follow up on it. So yeah. uh, Next up, they had Need for Speed. Not a huge racing fan. I'm not even good at Mario Kart, honestly. So I didn't have a lot of interest in that, but they did demonstrate the game, and they didn't have to drop a car down onto the show floor to do it. So I mean, props. From what they showed of the gameplay as it started up, the guy who was talking, it I couldn't honestly tell if it was part of the game or if it was something before the game. It looked like a real life person, like they digitized him or something. Uh, it reminded me of the Sega CD. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but then they went to the car customization. Love customization. Uh, I mean, obviously with car games, customization's pretty standard, but it looked like they had a good array of choices and options, and everything looked really good. The graphics, everything looked lifelike. Like I said, I had a hard time telling if it was part of the game or if it was like a cutscene before. Uh, so yeah, good on the graphics. Overall, not bad. Again, I'm not hyped for racing games, but if you are, you may want to look into that one. Uh, it didn't really make me want to play the game, but that's a predisposition on my end, not necessarily speaking of the game itself. Uh, Next, they went to Star Wars: The Old Republic. I think, based on how they were talking about it, it sounded like that's a game that is already online, like it's a MMO, and what they were talking about was an expansion for it, Knights of the Fallen Empire. Yeah, uh, and that's going to be free to existing subscribers of the Old Republic. Uh, and they had promises of new storylines, with decisions that would, like, based on how you do it, it would impact the outcome of various characters and everything. And that's cool. I can get behind that, but I don't know anything about the base game, so I can't really talk about that either. But it sounds cool. Like if you're a Star Wars fan and you like MMOs, then maybe if you haven't already checked that out, you probably already have if you care. But uh, so that's their expansion pack. Didn't really make me interested in trying, but I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. You want Master Moses for that. Uh, and then they had Kirby's Epic Yarn. No, that wasn't it. Yoshi's Woolly World. No, that's Nintendo too. Unravel. That's it. Uh, I'm poking fun at it, but I really did like the concept of it. Like, apparently everyone's into Yarn lately. Like I said, there are two Nintendo games with Yarn. Kirby's Epic Yarn's a little older. Everyone seems to forget about that. It was a good game. I swear, it's a good game. Uh, but the concept of Unraveled was the idea of bonds between people, and the yarn is like the string that ties them together, and the further apart people get, the more likely it is for that bond to unravel. I love that as a concept. That is beautiful. Uh, I love storylines in games. I care about that a lot more than uh, a lot of people. Like, A lot of people don't care about storylines; they rather play a shooting game where you don't necessarily have a huge storyline. You got a little story mode, but it's more based on the multiplayer. I'm the opposite. I'd rather have a lot more story content than multiplayer content. But so I love the storyline on that. And the game itself looks gorgeous. Uh, it has like a real life aesthetic going on with real world settings, and it's just beautiful looking. That is a game I would love to play. I really want to see more about that. They didn't give us a lot, but what they gave was substantial enough to make me interested in it. And the developer guy they had coming out to talk about it, he was so nervous and it was adorable. It really made it feel like organic. It wasn't just some corporation shelling out the next big game. It gave it a human element, and I loved it. Unravel gets a big thumbs up. Definitely interested in that game. Next, with no transition, just blaring music right after Unravel, they transition to Plants vs. Zombie Garden Warfare 2, which I discussed very briefly in the Microsoft video. And the reason it was so brief is because they didn't talk about it there. We got a lot more content here, so that's good. But yeah, they didn't really wrap up Unravel. They just kind of transitioned over to it. Like I said, the formatting on this event or on this presentation was kind of a mess. I mentioned in my Microsoft video that I didn't really understand if Garden Warfare was separate from the original game where you just laid down the plants in the grid and they shot at the zombies. Apparently it is, based on what I saw here. As a shooter, it looks meh. I was not interested in the slightest. I liked the original cutesy grid layout a lot better. That looked more accessible to a variety of players of all ages and skill levels, as opposed to a game where you have to run around and try and shoot. And it looked like they had a lot of needlessly complicated things on it. It does have a multiplayer aspect, and they showed a lot of different classes very briefly, though. Not enough where you could really... They all looked kind of the same from how little they showed of each one. It does come with the ability to transfer characters from the original Garden Warfare game, which I didn't even know existed, which is really cool. Makes your old game actually relevant, so I like that. And it's supposed to have free content support in the future as opposed to paid DLC. Huge fan of that. I think that's the right way to go with DLC. I'm gonna eventually do a video where I lay out all my thoughts on DLC, paid content versus free content, and all that. Amiibos will probably be somewhere in there too because they're kind of along the same lines. But so yeah, huge fan of the free content. See my Splatoon review for more on that. Overall, though, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2, I was pretty unimpressed with their presentation. It didn't make it any more interesting than what Microsoft showed me, so miss on that. They did show some actual gameplay though, so that's cool. Next, they had NHL 16. I don't know, all the sports games blend together. There's a new one every year, and it's like for the year after when it actually releases. I'm confused on that. I'm not a sports person. That's my brother. It's hockey. You can't change it. It's just hockey. So I don't really see the point of it. Anyways, following that, they had more such unimaginative works as golf, soccer, football, sport ball, whatever. I don't care. We're gonna move on. They had a mobile game. I think it was mobile. Minions Paradise, based off the Minions from the Despicable Me franchise. The trailer looked really cute. It fit the style of the Minions and everything. Personally, I didn't like the Minions as much as the storyline on Despicable Me, but I've already talked storyline at length at this point. So, yeah, the trailer looked really cute and it fit the style. The concept is to build like a resort. Kind of reminded me of like those old like Zoo Tycoon games and Roller Coaster Tycoon, where you have to build like a a theme park, and you have to keep the customers happy. It reminded me kind of like that, but apparently you also have to send out the minions to collect resources to build new things and keep your park running. So I don't know. It was confusing, but not altogether a bad idea. If you're a fan of the minions, I think you should look at it at least. But as for me, I'm not terribly interested. Then after that, they went back to sports. Why didn't they talk about this set of sports while they were talking about the first set of sports? I don't know. Uh, but they went back to sports. Didn't care the first time. I cared even less the second time. This time they had some famous football player, which I am talking actual football, known in the U.S. as soccer. Uh, I think that football is a more applicable term, so I do go with the European, rest of the world phrasing. That's neither here or there, though. They had, he's really famous. I guess he's like the best one, or the best player of all time is regarded as that. His name is Pele or something. Like I said, I'm not an athlete or anything. Uh, he came out, and I mean, that's cool for getting people who are interested in sports hyped up, but for me, it didn't do anything for me. It just left me bored. At that point, I left, or I just minimized the window and listened to it as a radio while I worked on my Microsoft video. Yeah, so they just talked about that. 30 boring minutes later, they brought out Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which I think it's a prequel sequel to the original Mirror's Edge, maybe, if that's a thing. I don't know. What's a research? Uh, but it's some kind of corporation run dystopian future, which I love dystopian works. That is my jam. That's my favorite thing ever. Uh, so I love that concept. That got me interested right away. The graphics looked great. Everything, the beautiful. First person combat, whatever. I don't care if it's first or third person. First person does make it a little more immersive though. So yeah. Despite being free roaming large world, they did say that there wouldn't be loading screens or anything of the sort, so it'd be like a seamless gameplay. Which, if they can actually, if that's the case, that's really cool. That'll really help the immersion of that game, uh, and it sounds great. Uh, that one definitely looks like one I would keep my eye on. That is an interesting game. I wanted to see more, but we only got like 5 minutes of it. We did get some gameplay, so we got 5 minutes of that, and back to sports for a third time. And they just talked about that, minimized the window again, and then they got like halfway through that, and then Twitch crashed. Real professional guys. It wasn't out long. It was like 2 or 3 minutes, but still. I think maybe they decided to use their sports ball timeout card there, whatever. By the time they got that loaded again, they were talking about Star Wars Battlefront, uh, and I missed just a little bit of that, but it looked like they had a lot of concept art. Uh, I'm so sad I missed that. Uh, but then the lady who they had giving the presentation at that point said, I know you want to see gameplay, so we're going to give you gameplay. And cue another 2, 3 minutes of talking about concept art. Uh, that said, once she did shut up and got to the gameplay, it looked great. The graphics were fantastic, like the snow, and there was like steam, and oh, it looked great. And the game looked really open world, and it looked fun, and there were iconic characters and things that, even though I'm not a huge Star Wars person, I could recognize, like the Walker things, and they were on, I think that's Planet Hoth maybe. And there was Darth Vader. So yeah, that looked good. If you're a Star Wars fan, I think the Battlefront was the one to keep your eye on. Knights of the Old Republic was okay. Battlefront looks like the way to go, though. If you have to choose one or the other, I'd go Battlefront. Uh, so that wrapped up their presentation. Overall score for EA, 7.8 out of 10, too many sports. But really, in joking aside, they had some really great looking games that I would be really excited to get a chance to play. Unravel, like I said, love that. Mirror's Edge, dystopian futures, love that. Uh, I'd genuinely be interested in playing those. Uh, and then they had some more mediocre stuff like the sea of sports games, and then the Star Wars thing that's more of if you're a Star Wars fan, you might like it. If not, then whatever. Uh, and further, their organization, like I said, was atrocious. They had two Star Wars games, but they didn't talk about them together. And of course, they had three different things where they talked about sports games, like lump that together. Actually, thinking about it more, they probably knew that no one would want to sit through an hour long presentation of sports games, so they cut it into segments and tricked us into thinking it was over. But geez, I didn't want to watch all that sports. Anyways, overall, they had some interesting games, but they probably didn't have the strongest showing at E3 yet. I'd imagine they're not going to be the best, but so that's my thoughts. Let me know what you thought of EA's performance and what games they have coming out that you're interested in. Maybe you're a racing fan, so you're more excited for Need for Speed, or you actually are a huge sports ball fan and you've got golf or hockey or soccer that you're really looking forward to. I'm curious what everyone's interested in. So give me your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for more E3 coverage. Thanks again and see you next time.